let's start. Okay. Tav Zayin Amud Aleph. So, the Mishnah in Rosh Hashana started, the whole Masechta started with the statement, Al-Ba, the Hashanim, there's 4, Rosh Hashanas. Yeah, that's how the Masechta started. Al-Ba, Rosh Hashanim, there's 4 Hashanas. And in the Mishnah itself, there's a Machlekes, a couple dates. But in general, the Mishnah is stated with this idea that there's 4 Hashanim. Along came the Gemarrah, and many times we find ourselves a Nacha B'Aisa, Nacha Mishnah, saying that there's more than 4 Hashanas, there's another Hashanah, there's this. And the same thing happened here, the Zayin Amud Aleph in the beginning. All the way on top, it says Tana Rabbanan. The Chavim said a Mishnah, a B'Aisa, that we have a few more Rosh Hashanah. What did they say? Echa B'Nisan is Rosh Hashanah for Chadashim. Rosh Hashanah for, basically for Chadashim, when do we start a new cycle? When is it? Month 1, month 2, month 3? For Yiburim, when did you decide to make the year a leap year? Or Tumashkalim, the third thing is for Tumashkalim, for when do you stop or start collecting money for the New Year's Kabbanis? So it says Echad Ba'adal Mashmina Al Shkalim, or B'Chamishas Ba'adal Mashmina Al Shkalim. They say that you start collecting Shkalim around other time, and you finish collecting them at the end of Adar, and from Nisan you start using the money that came in Adar for new Kabbanis. Kabbanis that the tzibah has to buy, where does the money come from? It's Tuma Shkalim. It's a box that they put the shekel inside, and the Kabbanis come from there. So, and the Gemarrah is going to talk about this, but basically the Mishnah, the Brisa brings a whole thing that has a few other Hashanas, and now the Gemarrah, the way the Gemarrah is going to work itself through, it's going to ask a question. Sometimes it's going to ask a question: what's the source of that Rosh Hashanah, and why that's Rosh Hashanah specifically? Yeah, every few weeks it has a leak. Okay, this is.
I'm just taking a shower now. Bathroom over there.
This is very often.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. So basically the way the Gemarrah works, the way the Gemarrah is set up is basically says a statement. There's a few more Rosh Hashanah in addition to what the Mishnah is bringing, and now I have to tell you, number one, what's the source? Why do you pick that day? If the source, let's say, is this, maybe you can find a way to learn that the Hashanah is on a different day. That's number 2. And number 3, after working through all the other questions, the last question always remains is, if the Blatt had another Rosh Hashanah, why isn't our Mishnah saying that? So we worked through a few of these items. The first item about the Shana Chadashim, and now we're holding a Leibuim. I'm going to repeat the Leibuim one because we kind of ran through it last time. So Tav Zayin Amud Aleph, with the wide lines. So the Tumas Shkalim in Ibun to decide when you make an Ibun. Yeah, leap year. So it says, the Brisa said Chodesh Nisan, Echad B'Nisan. It's also
at the beginning of the year, you have to know that the year is going to be an Ibn.
Yeah, so that's 12 months in advance. It's like you open up a calendar and every day there's another day, the national day of this, national day of that. Echad B'Nisan could be Rosh Hashanah for many different things. Okay, but that's basically it. So the Gemarrah is going to ask again, the source. If you're making a statement, it's let's say for Yibun, for leap year, what does that mean? Why did you decide it's Echad B'Nisan? And if that's Taki Rosh Hashanah, why doesn't the Mishnah say it? That's the way the Gemarrah is always going to work through. And then we're holding on the second one, the Yibun. So by the wide lines, the Yibun. The Gemarrah says, Leibuin, min Nisan Moninon. He said that the Rosh Hashanah for Yibun, for deciding on a leap year, you decided on the Chodesh Nisan. V'atanya, well, in the Nabdaisa, ein ma'abrin Hashanah, lifnei Rosh Hashanah. You cannot make a Ibayal before Rosh Hashanah. That technically the question is there already. You cannot decide to make a leap year before Rosh Hashanah. Basically, you cannot decide more than 6 months in advance to make a leap year. Nisan is 12 months in advance. So how can you do that? So the question is there, but the Gemarrah is going to give us a couple more details. But if you made it before Hashanah, if you made it a Moberes, ain't a Moberes. Even if the Bezdin decided that we're going to make it a leap year before Hashanah, every holiday, say all the opinions, everyone agrees that the year is not going to be a Hashanah Moberes, it's not going to be a leap year. In order to make a leap year, the Bezdin has to agree, and on top of it all, the Nasi has to sign off on it. What happens if, after Rosh Hashana, you see the calendar, you see the way the previous 6 months worked, that the Nasi or the Bezdin couldn't get together? So you know that in a few months' time, the Nasi again might not be available. So then, on that, the Mishnah says, if you know that come Rosh Hashana, Cheshvan, Kislev, Tei, Shvat, any months after Rosh Hashana, the Nasi is not going to be available, the Bezdin is not going to be available. I think there's another garbage can here. The Bezdin is not going to be available. What do? You right away, you can be Ma'abad Shana right then and there and for Rosh Hashana. Okay, so Bnei Chag after Rosh Hashana. Before Rosh Hashana, everyone agrees. Even if it's a Chag, you cannot decide to make the leap year a leap year. After Rosh Hashana, if you know that Nasi is not going to be there, you can make it a leap year. Yeah. And even though you can be Ma'abad Hashana, you can decide on a leap year starting from Rosh Hashana on, you do not decide that Kislev is a Ibiyad, a Teva is a Shvat, whatever is Ibiyad, only other will you double the month. And thank God, because imagine Kislev having to arrange 2 months Miftzayim and the kids running around Miftzah tanks, right? It's going to be difficult, two Chanukah Miftzayim. So only other.
Why you do it the second month?
Just like that.
What happens if you're standing at the end of Cheshvan, at the end of Kislev?
You already did Chanukah. You
already packed it with them, you ate your donuts and you ate the latkes, and then decide, Nachamal.
Actually sounds good.
Okay, maybe.
People think like making 2 ovs,
Two ovs also, 2 ovs is not a problem.
Have enough donuts.
Hanukkah, I think the kids could live.
I would say two others to be Ma'abad Shana right after Purim is a nice thing, because you have 2 Purims, but they're just thinking about having to run around twice doing Mishlach Manas for the teachers, and forget it's not amount. Because you can technically be Ma'abad Shana after Purim, and then make another other. Then you have to make another Purim. Okay, so the only Ma'abad other. So the answer is, the question is basically, so you cannot be Ma'abad Shana, you cannot decide to make the year a leap year before Rosh Hashana. What's the reason behind that? Because if you make it so much in advance that people, come Pesach, the people are going to forget about it. Come Adar, the people are going to forget, and they're going to continue going on, and they're going to forget about the Ibiyot. So therefore, you only make it after Rosh Hashana. After Rosh Hashana is over, the Yom Tov is over, then you decide, okay, you make it a leap year. So if that's the case, why does our Mishnah... No, because the leap year is only Adar is a leap year, and basically what happens is you push off Pesach. If you forget about the pushing off Pesach, then you're going to make Pesach a month early. No, so let's say you're standing Rosh Hashana. The only Chodesh Ibud is Adam. You can only be Ma'abad Adam. So now you're standing at Chodesh Tishrei. Let's say even before Sukkot. Sukkot passes by, and in 6 months, you have to be Ma'abad Chodesh. You have to go a double month. So you're not going to forget about Sukkot. But if the message is not going to travel, or the message is going to travel, people are going to forget, then someone is going to make the Seder on Tesvav Nisan, and someone is going to make the Seder on Tesvav Iyar. They're going to forget. They're going to get confused. Okay. So the answer of Nachman ben Yitzchak says, what's the Ibur? So Amar Nachman ben Yitzchak, my Ibur, when the Mishnah said that the Chodesh Nisan is a Chodesh for Ibur, is Afsakas Ibur. At what point do you say, now I cannot be Ma'abad the year anymore? So he doesn't look on when do you decide that the year is going to be Ma'abad, but it's basically at what date do you say, okay, if Aleph Nisan comes and you see that it's still snowing outside, what's the reason why we make Ibur? The reason I make Ibur is because Pesach has to fall out in Chodesh Aviv. Pesach has to fall out in the month that the spring starts. Yeah, when the spring starts, when it's nice, it's getting nice outside. It's therefore every 3 years, because the lunar year is shorter than the solar year, so the summer comes later and the winter is longer. Come Pesach, and Pesach is going to be a cold season. Come Pesach, it's going to snow. So therefore you push off Pesach. The next year comes around. The Chachamim said, okay, according to the seasons, Chodesh Aviv is not going to fall out on Pesach, so we're going to add a month and just push the winter. The winter is going to finish off. The spring is going to come in, and Pesach is coming.
The seasons of Eretz Yisrael, not the seasons of Australia.
Yeah. Correct. That's what I'm talking about.
Pesach to be snowing also in Canada.
Correct. So basically, this goes according to the season. So now, on a Chodesh Nisan, so basically he's telling you that from Rosh Hashana and on until Chaf Tes Adar, to the last day in Adar, the Chacham can decide to make a Ibayah. But come Rosh Chodesh Nisan, if you are Mekadosh the Chodesh, comes Rosh Chodesh, comes Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that's it. You cut off, you're done. The date is done, you cannot. So the Mishnah is telling us not that this is it's interesting. The Mishnah is telling us it's not a Rosh Hashana. It's an end year, really. It's an ending. Now the year ends, and from now on, you cannot be Ma'abed Chodesh. When is the end? When can you decide that now that's it? It's over. Now you cannot be Ma'abed year anymore. That's a Chodesh Nisan. That Nan. An interesting story. There was a B'shuan of the pious. They witnessed. They said a witness statement. Hey neidu shema'abun hashana kol adar. That entire adar you decide to make a ibiyah. So basically, Aleph adar, the Chacham see that the winter is going to last too long. There can be ma'abed the adar. So basically, they'll have two adars, and Purim will be only the second adar. Or it could be after Purim passed, and they decide to make ibiyah. So there was a machlokes. Machlokes basically was that some were of the opinion that when can you decide to make ibiyah only up until Purim. Why? Because what happens? Purim is exactly, we're going to see it in the Gemarrah. So Purim is exactly 30 days before Pesach. Shloishim Yom Kedem Achag, 30 days before you have to start teaching the Hilchos Achag. So someone that is not knowledgeable with the dates is going to go to shul and see that Baldash Nidov is giving a dosha 15 of right after Purim is giving a dosha by Pesach. So he knows in his head that in 4 weeks from now, exactly 4 or 5 weeks from now, 4.5 weeks is Pesach. So therefore they said they're of the opinion that in order to be Ma'abed the year, to make it a leap year, you have to do it before Purim. Like this, the Hashanim are not going to talk about Pesach, and no one is going to get confused. Coming a B'shuan of a pious and tell us that we don't look at that. We don't care about the Hashanim. They're gonna. Why the Gemarrah is gonna give a reason. So hey neidu shema'abun hashana kol adar, the entire adar. You could be standing Chaf Tes Adar before Shkia, and the Chacham see that the winter is lasting too long, and then make it another adar. Because there was opinions that you can only ma'abed the year to Purim. My time at the Manda about Purim. What's the reason of the one that says he can only be ma'abed until Purim? Because we learned that 30 days before Pesach, he can start teaching Pesach. Also, everyone is going to listen to the Hashanim. They're going to make Pesach for exactly a month after Purim, and they're going to eat matzah and everything. And a month later, when it's the real Pesach, they're going to eat chametz. So therefore, there's an opinion that you should only be ma'abed the year before Purim. So comes Rabbi Shua and Pais v'hei meidu, and they said bear the witness statement, and it said no, you can be ma'abed the entire Adam. But there's a real problem. Maybe people are going to get confused. V'idach, why did they say you can be ma'abed the entire? Even after Purim, you can decide to make it a leap year. In the Meida Yadiyah, they are of the opinion that every person knows the shata me'abata b'chushbon atali milsa, that an ibayal depends on cheshbonis, on certain calculations, and it's not just 30 days. They know even if the Dashanim will start talking about Pesach, it's not for sure the Pesach is coming in 4 weeks. Purim can pass, and the Dashanim will start speaking about Pesach, and still the people will know that even though they speak about Pesach, because Pesach depends on a certain calculations about the solar year, about the seasons. Therefore, we are going to wait to find out when it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So they said that until the Rosh Chodesh Nisan comes, you can be ma'abed the year. You can make it a leap year. But once Rosh Chodesh Nisan comes, that's Rosh Hashana le'ibudin, done. And everyone knows that the chushban, maybe they didn't finish completing the calculations. Until now, and therefore they're not relying on the Dashan. So now the last thing we have to figure out, if Aleph Nisan is considered the Rosh Hashana for Iburin, why didn't our Mishnah mention it? And the answer is a simple thing. Now that we know that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the end date of Iburin, not the beginning date, that's why the Mishnah didn't mention it. The Mishnah is mentioning Rosh Hashana. But in our time, the Mishnah speaks about the beginnings. It doesn't speak about ending when things are cut off. So our blatt said yes, Rosh Chodesh Nisan is considered Rosh Hashana for Iburin. Our Mishnah doesn't mention it because it's an end date. It's not a beginning date. Okay, that's the end of that piece. New piece, Gemarrah. The third thing that the Tana in our blatt here mentioned is Tumas Shkolim. The fact that starting from the Chodesh Nisan, from Aleph Nisan, you can start using the money that came in the past month for the new kabbanis that are going to be brought to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Mizbeach. So we're going to ask again. The first question is going to be, where do you know that from? The pasuk says like this. We just read it in the Chodesh yesterday. Zois oilas chodesh bechotche lechotche Hashana. Why is chodesh? Why is a month called chodesh? Why is the chodesh called the beginning of the month? Chodesh comes from the word chodosh, new. We call it a chodesh because there's a new month. So the pasuk tells us you're going to bring a chodesh, zois oilas of the new month chodesh, bechotche when it renews, which is on a chodesh, and then the pasuk adds something redundant, lechotche Hashana. If the pasuk would have told us just you have to bring a kalban oila on a new oilas chodesh, the kalban oila that is a chodesh dig oila, bechotche on the day that the month renews, that's good enough. Why is it adding the words lechotche Hashana for the month of the year? It doesn't make a difference. We're not looking at the yearly thing. We're looking at every month. The pasuk tells us that you have to bring a kalban oila on a chodesh. So lechotche Hashana is redundant. So the Gemarrah says, the Torah tells us like this: Chadesh v'haveh kalban mitum chadasha. Bring in a new month, and on the month that a new cycle of month starts, that's when you're going to take money from the new. That is going to take the kalban from the new money. Chadesh v'haveh kalban mitum chadasha. On a Chodesh Nisan, when the new cycle starts, that's when you're going to start bringing kalbanas from the new money that just came in. How do we know that Chodesh Hashana, the fact that the new cycle starts, how do we know that goes on Nisan? V'gam Shana min Nisan. By Nisan it says the Chsiv Rishon Lachem LeChodesh Hashana. In Nisan it says that it's the first of all the months, and in this passage also it says LeChodesh Hashana. It says the word Shana. So Shana, just like Nisan it says Shana, and we're talking about Nisan. So in our passage by the Chodesh it says Shana. It also talks about Nisan. So from the Chodesh Nisan, as soon as the Chodesh comes in, you can start using the money, the new money that came in from Tumah Chadasha. So a simple question. It says Shana by Tisha as well, so maybe say that you should start collecting the money by Tisha, not Nisan, because it says Shana by Tisha also. V'ligma Shana by Tisha. The Chsiv Maseches Rosh Hashana by Tisha. It says Maseches Rosh Hashana, beginning of the year, that goes in Tisha. And for the Gemarrah, simple answer. By the Kalban of Chodesh it says Chodesh Hashana, and by Nisan it says Chodesh Hashana. It needs both. It needs the word Chodesh and it needs the word Shana. Done in Shana Sheshim Chadashim, you can do this Gezeirah Shalva when it says Chodesh Hashana, the word Shana that also has the word Chadashim, Mishana Sheshim Chadashim. You cannot learn this Gezeirah Shalva from the word Shana where the word Chadashim doesn't appear. So, in short, what does it say? That where is this whole concept that on a Chodesh Nisan you can start using the fresh money from the Tumas? This is a pasuk that we read every Chodesh, Zois Oilas Chodesh Bechotchai. That should be enough to teach us we have to bring a kalban. The fact it says Chodesh Hashana teaches us that the month that starts the new cycle of the year, of the months of the year, on that day you can start taking new money. Everything has to do with new moon, new money. But when does it cycle? When does it start? On Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Okay, so now we know the source. Now the Gemarrah is going to teach us a side halacha on the side. Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmuel Kabanis Tzibur Aboin Be'echad B'Nisan. The Kabanis Tzibur, any carbon that the Tzibur needs, that are being brought from Chodesh Nisan on, mitzvah lahavim chodesh. Not only do you have to take it, but if you take it from the new money, you have an additional mitzvah. But if you bring the carbon from old money, you yoytze. It's a good carbon. But you're missing a mitzvah. We learned as well, as proof of this statement, the same idea that if you have to bring it from the new money, you should bring it from the new money. If you didn't bring it, you're yoytze, but you're missing a mitzvah. Now the Gemarrah adds a statement, but if a private person comes and says, I want to pay for the next month's korban, don't take it from the money of the public money. I'm going to give money for you to use for the korban. The korban can be considered a communal sacrifice. But the yachid has to give the money to the tzibur. So that's an obvious statement. If he's keeping the money to himself and he's buying the korban on his own account, then it's a korban yachid. It's my own private korban. Obviously, he has to give the money to the tzibur. What's the statement? Pshita. The Gemarrah says it's a simple statement. We could be worried of someone that says, "I want to sponsor the entire korban on my account." He has some netiya, some side things. The reason why he wants to donate this, and not out of pure that he wants to give pure tzedakah. So the Gemarrah says we could be worried that such a person is not giving it 100%. Kamash Malon, we're not worried about that. And anyone that decides to donate a korban has 100% pure intentions, and the korban is makubal. Okay, so these are two side halachas, that even though you should use the money, the new money that comes in, and you have a mitzvah of using it, but if you didn't use, you're still yotzeh. And if a private person wants to pay for the korban, it's good as long as he donates it, which means that whenever he donates it, it's going to mean that he's donating full-heartedly. So now we're going to ask the question, why didn't our Tana learn that a Chodesh Nisan is a Chodesh for the new Kabbanas? The Tana did done, Tana did done says that it's not a complete final statement. There is an option of using old money. The Gemarrah says, if you don't use the new money, if you use the old money, then you're still yotzeh. Our Mishnah doesn't speak about that. Our Mishnah speaks about final things. So Tisha is a Shana for this. Nisan is a Shana for this. We're not talking about such a Rosh Hashana which is only sometimes applicable. I want to use it, good, I have a mitzvah. I don't want to use it, I'm still yotzeh. That's what the Mishnah is not using. Kivin the Tanim hevi yotza lepsikala. It's not a final thing, and therefore our Mishnah does not bring this type of Rosh Hashana into account. Okay. In that blatt on top of Daf Zayin, it was like this. There was three things that he said this as well as Rosh Hashana as well. That Aleph Nisan, the first day of Nisan, is a Shana for Chodashim, a Shana for leap year, and a Shana for Shkolim. And then there is a Yesh Oimnim. So the Tana Kama doesn't agree. The Tana in the beginning of the blatt does not agree of this Yesh Oimnim. But as a third opinion, it says that the Chodesh Nisan is considered a Rosh Hashana l'schidos habatim, for leases and rentals. What does that mean? Yeah. No, so Aleph Nisan is the beginning of leases and rentals. What does that mean? Says the Gemarrah, Tana Rabban, Hamaski buys l'chaver l'shana. If someone writes in a lease or in a rental agreement, I am renting this house for a year. So it doesn't make a difference when in the year that is. If he says I'm renting this house for a year, the day that you start the rental, you count 12 months, you count 365 days or 354 days. Moine Shneimos Chodesh miyoyim liyoyim, he counts day by day, make sure the 365 or 354 days pass by. Okay, so if you write, I'm renting a house for a year, no matter where you stand, you're going to count full 12 months. If you write, I'm renting this house for this year, that changes now. For this year, if he rents the house, if the contract is written and signed on Echad Ba'adam, as soon as the Chodesh comes, also Leshana, the contract is over. The guy either has to write a new contract or what's it called? And here, Taisa says, look at if someone in Crown Heights signs a contract, Aleph Adam, and it says it's going to cost you $25,000, I don't know, $30,000 for the rental. You can say $30,000 doesn't make sense to rent for 1 month, right? $30,000 you can rent for a few months. So it must be that meant for the year thing. So Taisvus, also Lashana second Taisvus, we do not say that the money is considered proof how long the lease is for. The money that you have, that you signed, is either considered a gift or pekadon, or maybe a loan or something, pekadon. Anyway, so basically, if someone stands on Aleph Adam and signs a lease and saying, I'm renting this house for this year, as soon as Aleph Nisan comes, lease is over, you guys have to move out. Huh? No, Aleph Adam. Very good, Aleph Adam. But the Gemarrah is going to ask a question. Also the Shana. In the beginning of Shana, we discussed the idea of kings, that if a king becomes a king on Chavtas Adam, the next day, the Chodesh Nisan, because Nisan is it's considered the second year of his kingdom, of his reign. So here in that case, we say Yom Echad B'Shana Choshev Shana. Zog the Gemarrah, even according to the opinion, it says Yom Echad B'Shana Choshev Shana, that one day it's considered a full year. So l'chayda here also, why is the chidush that he rented Aleph Adon? Say a bigger chidush. He rented, like he said, Chavtes Adon. He signed a lease, Chavtes Adon, and he wrote in the lease for this year. The moment the Chodesh Nisan comes in, the lease should be over. Why don't we say that? It's a much bigger chidush to say. So one day is considered a full year. Here it's different. Here it's different. Because we go according to what makes sense. The whole idea of Schilas Batim, this idea of deciding on a date for a rental, was made up. Now was made at Takana by the Chacham. There's no pasuk in the Torah that tells us that that Nisan is a Shana Schilas Batim for rentals. It's something that the Chacham decided to make a Takana to fix something that was that needed fixing, and they decided to put a date in it. And therefore, because it's what the Chacham felt, there has to be a reason. What's the reason? The reason is. The reason is because otherwise things are going to go wild. But for the same reasoning also, it cannot be one day. It has to be at least a month. Why? No one is bothering to rent a house to move less than 30 days. Okay? The kasha the Gemara is going to ask is not let Rosh Hashana for Schilas Batim, Rosh Hashana for leases be Tishrei, but the question really is, tell us the reason why you decided on Nisan, not Tishrei. For the same token that you wanted to set up a date when the leases are over, why did he pick a Rosh Nisan? Why not Tishrei? Ve'ema Tishrei. So the Gemara again, everything has to do with logic here. There's no pasuk. Everything is logic. Stam ki oger inish beisa. Usually when a person rents a house, lekuli yemaisak shamim agam. A person rents a house, he wants to live there at least the entire rainy season. The rainy season is considered Tishrei till Nisan. So therefore, the Chum decided, according to this Tanakama, right? Only he says, this Tana says that Chodesh Nisan is Rosh Hashana for leases. According to him, he says no one rents a house during the rainy season, unless he has to, obviously. But if I rent a house right before the rainy season, my intentions are I want to be there the entire rainy season. I don't want to rent in the middle, move and rent another place. So therefore, they decided that the cutoff date or the New Year starts when the rainy season is over. Therefore, this whole idea is only in Chodesh Nisan. You cannot say, let's say, someone stands up on a Chodesh Elul and signs a lease for 30 days, because no one's going to do that. No one is going to sign a lease on Elul for 30 days, knowing that as soon as the rainy season starts, I have to move again. So therefore, they said this cutoff date is on Nisan. Now the question becomes, our Tana does not agree, does not believe there's such a thing as a Shoshana for leases. Not only that, but the other Tana in that Blaisa also doesn't mention it. Why don't they say it? Why don't they say there's such a thing as a Shoshana for leasing? And for the Gemarrah, V'tana Kama de Blaisa, V'tana de Don, V'tana our Mishnah, but Nisan, why don't they say this Rosh Hashana? For a simple reason, there's no reason to make a Rosh Hashana for a lease, because if you're worried about the rainy season, but Nisan also sometimes you can find that it's a rainy season, and therefore it doesn't make a difference. There's no such thing that someone rents for a full rainy season. The minimum someone rents is 30 days. Anytime throughout the year, doesn't make a difference when. And whenever he rents, if he writes for a year, it means 365 days. If he rents for this year, it means 365 days. It doesn't make a difference, according to our Tana and the Tana Kama of the Blaisa.
Meaning there's no Rosh Hashana for Schidus.
Yeah. It's also such thing. That's according to our Tana and Tana. That's what our Tana doesn't mention it, and the Tana Kama in the Blaisa also doesn't mention it. Okay, now we're going to go back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah made a statement, mentions Zabon, Rosh Hashana, there are 4 Rosh Hashanas, and in between the one that he mentions, he says that Echad Be'elul, Rosh Hashana, Ma'aseh Behema. Well, that's Echad Be'elul, the first day of Elul, is Rosh Hashana, Ma'aseh Behema. What does that mean? That all the animals that were born until Echad Be'elul, they are considered new animals. So you put them all into a den, and you start count. What? A pen. Sorry, a pen. And you start count and let them go out one by one. And you start counting, and the 10th one they give out Zetz, and that's Ma'aseh Behema. Okay. Mani. Who the Mishnah says first day of Nisan is Hashanah Lemlachim, and then it says it's also Hashanah for the Golim. And we already said in the Gemarrah that it's a mistake. It's not El Aleph Nisan, but it's Tezvav Nisan. That Hashanah for the Yom Tovim is Tezvav Nisan. And then it says Be'echad Be'el. So basically, the Gemarrah is trying to say who is teaching us this. So the Gemarrah, who is telling us that Echad Be'el is Hashanah Ma'aseh Be'ema? It's Sameach. How do we know it's Sameach? The Tanya, it says in the Bible clearly. Be'echad Be'el is Hashanah Ma'aseh Be'ema. The first day of El is Hashanah for Ma'aseh Be'ema. Okay, done. So now, let's take a step back. It says Be'echad Be'nisan. It's Hashanah for Regalim. Or Tezvav Nisan Hashanah Regalim. Who is that? Ula Regalim. Mane. Who is the Tana that says that Tezvav Nisan is Hashanah for the Yom Tovim? Rab Shimon. How do you know it's Rab Shimon? Because we had a machlokes 2 pages ago about the whole idea. If you delay bringing a korban, how many Yom Tovim do you have? So there's 5 opinions. One opinion of Rab Shimon's opinion is that you have to have 3 Yom Tovim, and it has to be considered. It has to be Pesach is the first one. In order for us to know if that Pesach is the first Yantav, you have to decide that Tezvav Nisan is a Hashanah for the Golim. So Rab Shimon is of the opinion that Pesach, Tezvav Nisan, is the Rosh Hashana for the Yom Tovim. So now, what happens if you look at the Mishnah? The Mishnah is sliced and diced. The Mishnah starts off the first day of Nisan Hashanah Melachim. Rab Shimon says that Tezvav Nisan is a Hashanah for Yom Tov. Rab Meir says that the Echad Be'el is Hashanah for the behemoths. And then the Mishnah continues and says, Rab Shimon say that this is not Echad Be'el, but Echad B'Tishrei. And then it continues, goes on. The Mishnah goes on. If you write it this way, that there's so many different Tanoim arguing in the Mishnah that you have to write a few more names in the Mishnah. You would have to write like this. Abba Hashanim Heim. There's 4 Hashanas. Echad B'Nisan is Hashanah Lemlachim. First, yeah? Ula Golim. That's the Tanakama. And then he would say, Rab Meir says, Be'echad Be'el Hashanah Ma'aseh Be'ema. And Rab Shimon argue, but Rab Meir is not even mentioned in this Mishnah. So the Gemarrah has a problem, according to what you said, that the beginning is one Tana, the middle is another Tana, the end is another Tana. The Mishnah is full of Tanoim, but there's no Seder here. There's nothing makes sense. Zot the Gemarrah, look in the later on in the Mishnah, Rab Shimon Be'echad B'Tishrei, Rab Shimon say, that the Echad B'Tishrei is the Hashanah Melachim. So basically, what are you saying? Reish, the beginning of the Mishnah, Sefer, the end of the Mishnah, is Rab Shimon. Umetzias, in the middle of the Mishnah, is Rab Meir. And if you could write that, but if you write that, then you would have to write Rab Meir's name in the Mishnah. Okay, so basically, what happens here is, again, we took a Mishnah, a simple Mishnah that stated a couple dates, and we asked who is the Tana that mentioned these dates, and according to what we just said, it's 2 different Tanoim, and you sliced up the Mishnah. One Tana, the beginning it's one Tana, and the middle is a different Tana, and the end is again like the first Tana. What's happening here? Amar Rav Yosef gives a simple answer. Rebbe, the entire Mishnah is Rebbe. And the Rebbe mentioned the opinions of many Tanoim. V'nosiv lo aliba Tanoim, and he mentions the Mishnah according to the Tanoim. When it comes to Yontef, Sovel like Rab Shimon, he holds like Rab Shimon. When it comes to Maseches Behema, so like a Meir, he holds like a Meir. And he mentions the opinion of Rab Shimon as well, but he holds like a Meir. Okay? So again, our Mishnah brought down Abba Hashanim Heim, there's 4 Hashanas, and he says, Echad B'Nisan is Hashanah Le'Melachim, Tezvav B'Nisan is Hashanah for the Golim. Okay? So Aleph Nisan is for Melachim, middle of Nisan is for Yontef, Echad Bet Elul is a Shana for Ma'aseh Behema, and they disagree and say it's Aleph Tishrei. Aleph Tishrei is a Shana for the years, for Yovel, and for other things. And there's a machlokes whether Aleph Shvat or Tu B'Shvat is a Shana for Elonis. Okay? And the Mishnah goes according to Rebbe. Rebbe is basically bringing you a bunch of opinions and says, I hold that it's in between the opinion. Like this I hold Rab Shimon. This I hold Rab Meir. This I hold Rab Shimon again. There's a whole basically.
This is the game for somebody who read it, and you didn't specify on the contract.
No. That was before. Yeah, this is in general. Yeah. So this is basically the Mishnah is split in a bunch of different Tanoim, and then he basically makes a seder and says, I agree with this guy that this, I agree with this guy for that date. But basically, if that's the case, If that's the case, the Gemarrah is going to ask a simple question. The Gemarrah is going to ask, then it's the Mishnah itself has 5 dates. Let's see. Okay, so again, the question was, the Mishnah mentioned a few different dates. These dates go according to a few different opinions, and if it's a few different opinions, these opinions should have been written clearly in the Mishnah. That the first one is the Tanakama, the second one is the Meir, the third one is the Shimon. Because the Mishnah didn't write that, therefore we say that the Rebbe is the one that composed this Mishnah, and Rebbe decided at the beginning is Tanakama, and I decided that the Rebbe said, for me it makes sense that the middle is the Meir, and the last part is again the Shimon. Okay? But the Gemarrah is going to ask a question on this. Ihachi, they have the middle of the page. Ihachi Abba, why does the Mishnah say there's 4 Rosh Hashana, Chamisha Hava, there's 5 Rosh Hashana? Aleph Nisan is Rosh Hashana. Tezvav Nisan is Rosh Hashana. Aleph Tishrei, Aleph El is Rosh Hashana. So that the Gemarrah said later on that when the Mishnah said that Aleph Nisan is Rosh Hashana Le'Golim, it's really a mistake. It's supposed to be Tezvav. Yeah, that Yontef, the Tezvav Nisan is the Rosh Hashana for when the Yom Tovim start, the cycle of Yom Tovim, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot. Okay, so we have Aleph Nisan, we have Tezvav Nisan, we have Aleph Elul, we have Aleph Tishrei, and we have Aleph Shvat, or Tu B'Shvat. Clearly written in the Mishnah. The Mishnah starts off saying there's 4 Rosh Hashana, the Mishnah mentions 5. Aleph Nisan, Tezvav Nisan, Aleph Elul, Aleph Tishrei, and Aleph or Tu B'Shvat. Machlokes.
Second, what is Aleph Tishrei besides Malachim?
Malachim, Yoivlois, no, that's for Nisan. For Yoivlo, Shemitah, Netiyah, for the years, the Shana L'Shanim.
For what?
Aleph Tishrei.
No, Nisan.
So, Aleph Nisan Malachim.
Is Malachim, and then
Tezvav is for Yom Tovim. Aleph Elul is for the Bais Behema. Aleph Tishrei is for everything else, for the Netiyahs, for Yoivlo, for the Shanim. And Aleph Shvat or Tu B'Shvat is for Shvat. Right. So I'm saying, but basically the Gemara is asking. You see, there's 5 dates here. What happened to the word Alba Shanamim?
There's 6 actually because you have Tu B'Shvat.
So that's a machlokes in the same thing. That's a machlokes in the same thing. No, this is not a machlokes. It's definitely Aleph Nisan, definitely Tezvav Nisan, definitely according to the Meir, definitely Aleph Elul. The Rebbe said that Aleph Elul. Definitely the Aleph Tishrei for Shanim, Yovel, Shemitah, and so there's 5. So if you say that there's a machlokes in the Mishnah, 2 different Tanoim, then you say one Tana has 4, one Tana that has Aleph Tishrei, one Tana has Aleph Tishrei. But he's saying that the entire Mishnah is Rebbe. Rebbe mentions a few Yom Tovim, and he says, I agree with a Meir that Aleph Nisan, Aleph Elul is also Yom Tov. If that's the case, you have Aleph Nisan, Tezvav Nisan, Aleph Elul, Aleph Tishrei, according to that Rebbe said, and Aleph Shvat or Tu B'Shvat. So now what's the story over here? So there's 2 answers. Rava gives 1 answer. Yeah, everyone holds there's at least 4. Now like this, the Rebbe is basically saying, according to all opinions, it's 4. The Meir doesn't believe in the Rosh Hashana for Yontif. Okay? So Tezvav Nisan, according to the Meir, does not exist. Why not?
Meaning we don't need the Rosh
There is no
Hashana
such thing.
for Yom Tov.
There is no such thing. Why is that? For simple. We had the Gemarrah. What? No, the Aleph Nisan is a Shana for Melachim. Yeah. The only reason why we need to have a Shana for Yom Tovim is for the Kabbanis. When you delay a Korban and you need to pay your over of the Isra of the Lega Korban, so you need to know. So according to the Meir says a few pages ago that as soon as one Yontif passes by, you're already over the Isra. So it doesn't make a difference which Yontif is first, or second, or third. As soon as the first Yontif you gave your pledge the Korban on Aleph Adon, if Pesach comes, you're already over. So you don't need this whole Rosh Hashana for the Golim. You don't need. So the Meir says, I take away the Shana of the Golim. So the Amar of the Abba Levakoil. Everyone of Meir and Reb Shimon all agreed it's for the Shana. Reb Meir, Abba, Reb Meir is 4. Why? Because Dal and Golim take away the Yontif of the Shana of the Golim because there's no need for it. Reb Shimon says also Abba, because Dal Maisa Behema, take away Maisa Behema, not that he doesn't agree with Maisa Behema, but Maisa Behema, he says, is Aleph Tishrei. Aleph Tishrei is already Rosh Hashanah, so it's not a new date. According to the Shimon, you have Aleph Nisan, Tezvav Nisan, Aleph Tishrei, and Aleph Shvat. According to the Meir, you have Aleph Nisan, Aleph Elul, Aleph Tishrei, and Aleph Shvat. All Alephs. Okay. Abnachman Yitzchak, Omar Abnachman Yitzchak gives another answer. Alba Chadashim, the Mishnah wants to say like this: there's 4 months, which within those 4 months there's many Rosh Hashanah. Uben Kama Rosh Hashanah. Nisan is a month that has many Rosh Hashanahs, has Aleph Nisan and Tezvav Nisan. Tish Elul has Rosh Hashanah, Tish has Rosh Hashanah, and Shvat has Rosh Hashanah. Done. So I have 2 answers. One says that the Meir has 4, just take away the Golim. The Shimon has 4, just take away Aleph Elul. The other answer is that Abba goes not on the Rosh Hashanah itself, but it goes in the months that they are Rosh Hashanah. So if that's the case, Meisvei, ask your question. Shisha Asa B'Nisan Rosh Hashanah Le'oiman. A new Rosh Hashanah we found. Another one. The 16th, not the 15th, the 16th day in Nisan is a new Rosh Hashanah. What's so special on the 16th day of Nisan? You bring a kalban with the new grain. The Oyman, the kalban Oyman, you bring the new grain. And from that moment on, the people around that in the world can use the new grain to bake. Chadash, they can eat the new grain. So that's Rosh Hashanah. Because that year you can start eating the new grain.
If you already bring plastic Rosh Hashanah, add some more.
Yeah, there's more. No, but you see the question why. Lidava, so once again, and Shisha B'Sivan, the 6th day of Sivan, is another special carbon. The Lechem Aponim. Lechem. And at that moment, you can bring a carbon from the new grain. Shisha B'Sivan Hashanah L'Shtei Lechem. So if you have these other 2, L'Rava that says that we are looking, according to all opinions, if the Meir agrees that Shisha Asa B'Sivan and Shisha B'Sivan and Shisha Asa Nisan is also Yontiv, then according to what Rava says, the mission should have said 6 Yom Tovim. Rab Nachman Yitzchak listen to Chamisha, should have said 5, because now you're adding another month. Rab Nachman said we don't look at the Rosh Hashanah itself, look at the months. We had added the month of Sivan that has Rosh Hashanah in it. Amar Papa, there's again 2 answers. Amar Papa Kikachoshiv Midi the Chayil Meuta. In our Mishnah, when he mentions Rosh Hashanah, we mentioned the Yom Tovim, the Rosh Hashanahs that start from the night before. Meuta from the night before. Midi the Loichayil Meuta Lekachoshiv. Things that don't start the night before, we don't makant. So Rosh Hashanah of Melachim starts at night. Rosh Hashanah for the Golim, when does the Pesach come in? The night. Rosh Hashanah comes in at night. Rosh Hashanah, Shmit and Yovel, everything starts at night. So that's what the Mishnah mentioned. But the Oimer and the Shtei Lechem, when do you bring it? By day. So that's not. So we only count the things that start at night. For the Gemarrah, a very interesting question. The whole reason we have Rosh Hashanah Legalim, we said, is what do we need to have this concept of Rosh Hashanah for Legal? To see when are you over on the Isur of Z.א-ח.א. When is that? That's only by day. Because at night you can't bring a korban. So by night you're not over yet. In the morning, when you wake up in the morning, you brought the korban tamid, and now you can bring your korban. You didn't bring it. You're over. So the whole idea of the Hashanah Legalim is not from the night. It's in the morning. So why do you mention it then? According to the Papa that says we don't count those, why are you counting it? And for the Gemarrah, Kivan shetzorich lesui mikara mechay v'koi. It's different. The truth is, the moment Pesach comes in, the moment the 4th Yontif comes in, which is Pesach really. That moment you're chayiv already. You can't bring the korban the next day. That doesn't make a difference. Yes, you can't bring it the next day, but you're chayiv from the moment Pesach comes in. So it does start at night. Because he should have had brought it until then. So therefore, the moment the korban is brought, you're already chayiv from the beginning of Yontif. And therefore, it's counted. Another kasha. What is yovel? You blow the shofar. And he blows shofar towards the evening, right before the night starts. So it's during the evening, it's during the day, and that's when all the avodim go out and the fields go back. It doesn't start from the night; it starts from the evening. Because we mentioned in the beginning of the Mishnah it says that Aleph B'Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah Levis, and for the Gemarrah, no. Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Shem Yochanan Broikahi. This the Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Yochanan Broika, the Amam Rosh Hashanah Chayil. The truth is, Rosh Hashanah comes in, all the avodim are done. That's the halacha. The avodim go out, the fields go back, they're standing like in the middle. And only what happens is, Yom Kippur is like a symbolic thing, you blow the shofar, but it has nothing to do with blowing the shofar. And the moment Rosh Hashanah comes in, which is at night, they go out. So therefore, Yovelis is mentioned. Rosh Hashanah Chayil. Okay, that's one answer. Papa says, whatever starts from night, that's what you use. Whatever starts the next morning, you don't mention. And therefore, our Mishnah only mentions those. So 4 lines in the bottom, Shisha. Shisha gives a different answer. Why doesn't Dava and Rav Nachman Yitzchak use Shisha also b'Nisan and Shisha b'Sivan as part of the count? In our Mishnah, he only mentions those Yom Tovim that as soon as the day comes in, it becomes holy, not because something you do. The Pesach comes in, the moment comes in, it's already holy. It's the Yontav is there. Tisha comes in, Rosh Hashanah comes in, it's holy. You don't have to do anything. The Oimel, there's something you have to do. You have to bring the Korban Oimel. You have to bring. But something that you have to physically do, though. Bring the Korban Oimel, bring the Korban Lechem. Okay, same questions before. In order to be mechayev the Korban of the blatt of Yontav, there's something you have to do. It's a Korban. When are you chayev? The moment you have to bring a Korban and you didn't bring it. When is that? After the Korban Tamid. The Korban Tamid is a ma'aseh, something you do. We learned it in Tamid when we learned it. The first avodah is the whole procedure. We learned the whole procedure of avodah. First Korban you bring is a Korban Tamid. Only once the Korban Tamid is brought can all the other Korbanos be brought. So basically, there is a certain ma'aseh. There is something that we do in the morning of Pesach, which is the Korban Tamid, and only then is it 3 months, 3 Yom Tov, and now you're over Balta Achar. So therefore, again, the Golim, why do we need to have a Shana the Golim? Because of the whole concept of delaying a Korban. This is totally on the Korban Tamid. And for the Gemarrah, Balta Achar comes in automatically, has nothing to do with Korban Tamid. The moment Yontif, same answer basically. The moment Yontif comes in at night, you're already chayav.
Even if you can't bring the Korban until tomorrow.
Does not make a difference. It's yeah. The chiyuv is already there. Finally, Gemarrah finished off. Yovelis is the same idea. Again, the same question because we don't officially know the answer is going to the other shit. Yovel also, you blow shofar. So if you think about the same answer, that says that the Yovel really starts from Tishrei and has nothing to do with blowing shofar. Blowing shofar is a ma'aseh. Yes, it's actually something you do, but according to Rabbi Shmuel, it doesn't depend on the blowing shofar. Yovel starts from Rosh Hashanah as soon as Rosh Hashanah comes in. Rav Ashi gives another answer, a totally nice new answer. Rav Ashi Omar Arba Rosh Hashanim Heim Shehein Ba'Arba Rosh Chodashim. There are 4 Rosh Hashanahs that also fall out on the first day of its month. And that's it. There are many Rosh Hashanahs, but not all of them fall out on the first day of the month. Arba, in our Mishnah we mention, it's according to different opinions of it, there's a certain difficulty with this, but in our Mishnah we only mention those Rosh Hashanahs that also fall out on the first day of the month. So therefore, Echad Nisan is, according to Rav Ashi here, is a Shana for Melachim and Regalim. I know. And Echad Be'elul is a Rosh Hashanah, Echad B'Tishrei is a Rosh Hashanah, and Echad B'Shvat is a Rosh Hashanah. Done. Yes, there are many other Rosh Hashanahs, but we don't count them. We don't count them because it's not part of the count. But the Gemarrah has a problem. The last one we mentioned is Echad B'Shvat and Tu B'Shvat, so Machlokes. If Rav Ashi says that we only count the ones that are Aleph Shvat, no, so basically, who is the Mandama that says Aleph Shvat? That's B'Shamai. We don't pass on like B'Shamai. So Ashi is basically showing that we go according to the B'Shamai. B'Shamai says Aleph Shvat is the Lanis. So now, if you say that it only mentions the one, so you go. So by the Gemarrah, we mention only the 4 Hashanahs that also fall out on the Chodesh. For the Gemarrah, Be'echad B'Shvat Ke B'Shamai. if that's the case, then you are saying that it's like Bashamai, that the Ech B'Shas is like Bashamai. You agree with Bashamai. And for the Gemarrah, Shloisha Ledivra Koil. The truth is, it's 3. According to everyone, 3 Yom Hashanah's fall in Rosh Chodesh. Be'echa B'Shvat is a Machlokes B'Shammai Hillel, and therefore, according to B'Shammai, yes, there's 4, but not saying a statement that this is it. And now, if that's the case, we must agree with B'Shammai.
Interesting. The Mishnah will bring.
Yeah, the Mishnah brings 4, but that's a question.
It's still bringing it.
Okay, 5 minutes left. Sagt die Gemarrah weiter. Aber Lezer B'Shimon Oim Bech.
It's interesting over here, but the Hillel goes against the.
No, so that, no. The Ba'ashi says that basically he's not saying a statement of Allah. Ba'ashi is saying, according to his answer, Ba'ashi is saying a statement that there are 4 Rosh Hashanah. According to some opinions, there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs, and only those 4 that will fall out on the first day of a month. Yes, there are opinions of others. Okay, but that's not what the Mishnah. The Mishnah wants to tell you there's 4 Rosh Hashanah. So basically, according to Ba'ashi, it's not la'locha, really.
He's just saying that the Rashi says he's just saying the Gemarrah is only going to count the ones that are Achel B'Chodesh. That's it.
Right.
Whether there's other ones that are Achel B'Chodesh.
Correct.
The Gemarrah is only counting
Yeah,
the Mishnah.
correct. But the issue is now with Aleph B'Shvat, because if you say that if you say there's a halacha statement, then
So bring it down.
You say
to the other ones which are Tazbah, whatever. We don't care about those.
that's it. Okay, so the Mishnah mentioned a machlokes between the Meir. We now know that the Mishnah, that part is according to the Meir, the fact that Aleph Tishrei is Aleph Elul is a Shana for Ma'aseh Behema, which basically means all the animals born until then are not put into a pen. Thank you. And they're let out and they count it. 10th one gets a Zetz, and that's going to be a Ma'aseh Behema. And Rabbi Elazar and Shimon say no, everything that's born until Tishrei. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar and Shimon learned their argument about when is Ma'aseh Behema, when is the Shana Ma'aseh Behema. They use the same pasuk, Shneim Mikra Echad Dashu, and they both learn it from the same pasuk. Shneim, it says a pasuk to Tehillim. Love Shekadam Atzoin. Titzoin, the flock got dressed up. Kadam is really something surrounding them. Va'amokim Ya'atfubad, and an Emek, a valley, Ya'atfubad, is full with grain. We said now this last week, Yosef hu amash be'bal. Yosef gives out bal, it gives grain. So Ya'atfubad means it's fully covered with grain. Yisra'au afishir, they're jumping and dancing, and they're also singing with joy. This pasuk really goes. It's a pasuk about. Pasuk speaks about obviously always the Eden, but in this the literal teaches at what point do the flock of sheep of goats, when do they become pregnant? When do they start bearing a child, offspring? So the pasuk says, "I love shekol matzoin." When do the flock have something inside that their body surrounds, basically a baby inside? So when is it? Either it's when amokim yatfavad, when the valleys are full of grain, or when the grain sinks. What does that mean? The Meir Sava Amos Alav Shekol Matzoin. When do the flock of sheep of goats? When do they become pregnant? Mizman shamokim yatfavad. When the valley is full of grain. When is the valley full of grain? Ve'emos amokim yatfavad. When is the valley full of grain? Ba'adam. Because towards the end of the rainy season, he sees everything starts growing. The valley is covered with grain. So basically, misabas ba'adam, the flock of animals becomes pregnant in Adam. V'yoyeldes be'av, and they have children, they have their offspring in Av. And if they have their offspring in Av, most of them have their offspring in Av. So if what's the next Chodesh that comes? Hashanah Shalom is Elul. So therefore, according to the Pshit of Meir, Aleph Elul is Hashanah for Ma'aseh Behema. That's when he start counting. No. When do the animals become pregnant? When the stalk of grain is fully grown, and now the wind blows, and it looks like they're singing and dancing to the wind. So basically, what is it? It's a Nisan. When do the Shabalim, the grain, when do they say Shira? What does it look like they're singing and saying Shira? But Nisan. So what does that mean? Mis'abo is Benisan. The animals become pregnant in Nisan. V'yoydes be'el, and their children are born in El. And therefore, the Shana Shalem is Tishrei. The Shana is Tishrei. Did you hear something? Alright, so we'll finish here.